This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I'm one of the hosts of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter, on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms. Get over to the Football Function if you are a football fan. We're getting right into the thick of the playoff tournament. Obviously, we're about to start divisional round as we speak. I'm about an hour away from the first divisional round game. I watched SmackDown a little bit ago, got all of my, notes taken, and I'm ready to rock here to bring you this SmackDown review before any games get started. But if you are a football fan, I would highly recommend going over to the Football Function, subscribing, and becoming a certified funky over there. I definitely appreciate it and would welcome you to the Football Function family. However, this episode of SmackDown that we're going to be talking about, I'm a pretty big fan of it. Just gotta be honest. Especially the Kevin Owens show. I felt like that didn't feel like an episode of SmackDown. I don't know if the ring was set up differently than a normal KO show. I noticed there were no chairs, no decorations outside of the little posters that have the logo, the KO show. So it seemed a little bit different. I don't really know. Maybe it was just the star power of Logan Paul being there, along with someone who I really respect in Kevin Owens. So it was just a really good segment. There was a lot of other good things that happened throughout the show. Obviously, we're going to get there in good time. First things first, got to give a shout out to DJ Kuzmo for providing the location breakdown per usual. And this episode aired from a place that is very close to home, not geographically, but emotionally, I guess. Just, a place that's close to the heart, so to speak. It aired from Atlanta, Georgia, in the State Farm Arena, formerly known as the Phillips Arena. First time I ever went to Atlanta, it was still the Phillips Arena, and this is just a beautiful facility. They showed the outside view of it, how it literally says Atlanta on the outside of the stadium, just in huge metal letters. They showed a skyline over the city. It's just a beautiful city altogether, but this specific arena I have been to. It's a very, very nice setup. You could tell that they remodeled it not that long ago. It's very modern for how long it's been up. The time I went there was for an Atlanta Hawks versus Detroit Pistons game. And believe it or not, Henry Elson, who I don't even know if he's still in the NBA, he was an end-of-the-bench guy. He didn't even come into the game that specific season or that specific game whenever we went and watched the Hawks and the Pistons that season. But long story short, we went to Zaxby's, which is a chicken finger, chicken wing type of place in Atlanta or just in the South in general. It's extremely good. I love that place. I actually just got it in Oklahoma City not that long ago whenever I went there for the Boston Celtics game. So back to the story. I was there at Zaxby's. This was 2015, 2016, somewhere around there in that time frame. And literally there were just two Detroit Pistons players. It was pretty obvious they were players because how tall they were, the gear that they were wearing. We just asked them, hey, are you guys on the team? And sure enough, they're like, yeah, we are. We said, awesome. I'm not a Pistons or Hawks fan, so I wasn't going to fangirl out or anything like that. And just to be completely honest, I didn't know who they were at the time. So thought it was pretty cool that we just ran into NBA players. But the main thing that I was talking to them about was the fact that 2 Chainz was performing that night after the game. And because they were the road team, obviously, they're not going to stay and perform. But I was just curious if they were aware that 2 Chainz was going to be in the facility. They're like, oh, that's right, he is doing that, huh? It was just a cool casual conversation with 2 professional basketball players. And of course we have great seats that night. It was a phenomenal game because, like I said, I don't have a horse in the race. I'm not a Hawks fan. I didn't care if they won or lost. I know it was my first ever NBA game to attend, and I've only been to 3 in my entire life, so definitely one of the more fun things to do. You guys know, if you're a loyal listener to this show, I go to professional games, specifically Falcons games, every single season. But the Celtics, I just got to watch them play for the very first time this month in January of 2024, the second, right when the year started. So that's a pretty good bucket list thing, I will say, and I'm looking forward to going to more games. In fact, the next thing that I'm doing, actually, that I'm pretty sure is going to happen is I'm going to the Monday Night Raw in San Antonio on March the 4th. So if any of you are in San Antonio or any of you are, in the area that are going to be going to that, let me know for sure, because obviously that's a phenomenal city. I've been there a few times, gone to a couple Royal Rumbles there. I'm definitely probably going to go back for the Monday Night Raw that's going to be there, because now I live with a 6-year-old who absolutely loves wrestling. And you guys know, especially if you have, children or younger siblings, that you see that fandom in a really young kid. Like, that wrestling is still like Santa Claus to them, like they still are being introduced to it for the very first time. Like, he's never seen a WrestleMania, and he's going to watch his first WrestleMania this year. And this Monday Night Raw that we're going to go to is going to be on the road to WrestleMania, so you expect it to be a pretty big one, obviously, with some of the people who are on Monday Night Raw. I'm excited for this as a 30-year-old, so I can only imagine how excited he's going to be. And it just kind of sets the stage for him attending wrestling shows of his own, growing up. The first time I went to a wrestling show was like 1999 here in Amarillo at the Civic Center, which I've gone to wrestling events there literally as recent as June 2022. But I go there anytime WWE shows up. But this was actually a WCW show. I got to touch Sting. It was the biggest highlight of my life up until, like, I don't even know, probably like 8th grade or something like that, whenever something else cool happened. But getting a chance to touch him, and I remember the main event was Diamond Dallas Page versus Booker T for the World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously, Booker T won, but it was a fun night, man. I'm just, going back a little bit, remembering that time, and, I'm hoping that he will, because I was born in 1993, so I was right around 6 years old whenever I went to my first wrestling show. Could have been 5. I know that was in that time frame, and that's like literally how old he is right now. So I'm looking forward to being the one who takes him to that event, and obviously, hoping that he has a great time, as good of a time as I had, because, this isn't a house show. That show that I went to in 1999 was just, a live event. The one that I'm going to be taking him to is an actual Monday Night Raw on the road to WrestleMania 40, which is just extremely huge, a monumental WrestleMania. I wish I was going to this. I'm extremely jealous of all of you who are going to this event, specifically Howard Poole, because, Howard's come on the Football Function a lot, and it's going to be in his home state of Pennsylvania. So, the last time WrestleMania was in my home state, in Dallas, at WrestleMania 38, I went, and it was the first WrestleMania, probably the only WrestleMania that I'll go to. So I can only imagine, getting a chance to go to WrestleMania 40 with this roster that's here at your disposal and all the good storylines that are happening. WrestleMania is WrestleMania. Any year that you go, it's, one of the biggest moments probably of any type of wrestling fan's life. Why wouldn't it be? But going to a WrestleMania like WrestleMania 40, I gotta say, man, I'm definitely jealous of all you. But nonetheless, we have a SmackDown and many other SmackDowns to cover before we actually get to WrestleMania. So let's go ahead and talk about this one, the one that aired on January 19th, 2024 from Atlanta, Georgia in the State Farm Arena. But before we do that, I do want to plug at the very end of the show, we're going to continue the Stack 'em Up Saturday trend. Just for those of you who aren't aware, anytime that I record this episode on Saturday instead of Friday, I pretty much like to give the listeners a little bit of a treat, and that's a Stack 'em Up Saturday, which is a top 5, a random ranking of various different things. This week in particular, just in spirit of the Royal Rumble, and because it's Royal Rumble season, it's actually a week from today as I'm recording this, we're going to do the top 5 dark horses to win the Royal Rumble this year, both men and women. I'm not going to give you 2 different lists. There's going to be some women, some men sprinkled in, but long story short, this isn't going to be the layups. This isn't going to be the people who, it's obvious, okay, there's a good chance that person is going to win the Royal Rumble. These are people who I know it's not likely. That's the reason why they're called a dark horse. But I do think that they do have a greater than 0% chance to win the Royal Rumble. And WWE has shocked me many, many times. Usually, anytime that there's a very predictable Royal Rumble winner, which you could argue last year in San Antonio, whenever Cody Rhodes won. That was pretty predictable. As soon as it was revealed that he was coming out 30, like, oh man, Cody Rhodes is coming out at 30. Yeah, he's definitely about to win this Royal Rumble. I think that they might go the opposite route this year, might be a little bit less predictable. That's why I feel like it's necessary to have this Stack 'em Up Saturday be Royal Rumble themed. And speaking of it being Saturday, one of the benefits to recording this episode on Saturday is there are, I guess, more sources that you can look at. There's, more content that you could search and, get opinions on things. As far as what happened on SmackDown, it's not so fresh out the oven that it's still, you haven't even had enough time to process it, because SmackDown has been already over for, I don't know, like 13 or 14 hours. It's had some time to marinate, and I've been able to surf the web before coming on here and hitting the record button. So let's go ahead and get into this bad boy, shall we? And, speaking of surfing the web, as you guys know, I really like looking at what CBS Sports has to say about not only wrestling, but pretty much everything. I look at CBS Sports for their mock drafts. They have people who cover college football, the NFL, and just, I guess, the draft process, so to speak. So anytime it's mock draft season, you just go to CBS Sports and you're going to find various different writers who are putting together their own first round, second round, 3-round mock drafts. And it's pretty much the same thing for wrestling. Like if you go on there for pay-per-view picks, you'll see who many of the different writers and the contributors for that website are picking to win each match. And it's very insightful. And the same thing with SmackDown. I've noticed that Shaquille Majori, that's the one person you guys have known. I've quoted him many times on this show. I feel like he is someone who's a reliable source, and I absolutely wanted to read something from him just about, the main event picture. I'm not going to give his opinions on the entire show of SmackDown, but I did want to read what he said about, the Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, just the whole main event picture, and what happened on SmackDown, because I feel like it's not only a good chronological series of events, but it also just gives good detail as to what happened on the show, because the quotes really aren't there, because it's like I've kind of peeled back a little bit on my SmackDown review. You guys really don't need to hear word for word what was said on SmackDown. As long as you know the bullet points, what happened, and get our analysis of it, it's up to you to form your own thoughts. Most likely you did watch SmackDown, but there's usually a couple segments in every single show that I'm like, hey, if you didn't watch SmackDown, go back and watch this one, because me, as the person who covers this, the show for the WWE podcast, I take pride in watching SmackDown every week. Some segments I'll watch 3 or 4 times just because, I want to for sure be able to know exactly what happened, what I need to make sure gets, articulated and, I guess, transferred down the line to you. Just in case you didn't watch SmackDown, I have to make sure that whatever segments are juicy enough, you can go to YouTube or whatever and make sure that you catch up. So I do want to read one of Shaquille's paragraphs here and what he said about, just Randy Orton and Roman Reigns and pretty much things that happened towards the end of SmackDown. Reigns told Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa backstage that he was there tonight because they failed to deal with his title challengers last week. Sikoa said he'd solve the problems tonight. SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis kicked off SmackDown with the undisputed WWE Universal Championship contract signing. Just really quickly pause. Tell me that's not too damn long to read. With the undisputed WWE Universal Championship contract signing. Like, come on, man. Let's undisputed championship. That's perfect right there. Or WWE Championship or Universal. They're literally combining 3 different belts. The undisputed championship was once a title. The WWE Championship was once a title. And the Universal Championship was once a title. So the fact that they're combining them all to 3, like, let's get one name for this. It's a little bit redundant to continue saying all this stuff over and over again. But nonetheless, back to what Shaquille said here. Styles was introduced first and signed the contract. Knight entered next and jotted his signature. Orton was the final challenger to put pen to paper. Unfortunately, Reigns did not follow the script. The champion's theme song blared through the arena, but special counsel Paul Heyman stood alone at the entrance. Heyman said that Reigns would not sign the contract because their attorney has yet to look over it. Aldis threatened to book a triple threat match for the vacant, undisputed WWE Universal Championship if Reigns refused to sign. Heyman's ripped Aldis for doing a mediocre job as general manager. Heyman said the board of directors would never strip Roman Reigns and that the tribal chief runs the show. Heyman demanded that Reigns defend his title in a one-on-one match instead. That led to an intense verbal altercation between Knight and Styles. both of whom felt entitled to a singles match with Reigns. A fight broke out as WWE officials separated the two. Styles later demanded a one-on-one match with Knight, I guess that same episode of SmackDown, and then Nick Aldis agreed to book it. Deeper into the show, Reigns berated Uso for having too much fun and failing to defend the Bloodline's name. Sikoa took responsibility for the group's shortcomings, specifically last week against Knight, Orton, and Styles in that 3-on-2, was supposed to be a 3-on-3 match. Sikoa said that as the quote-unquote tribal hair, you guys know, I mean, H-E-I-R, I want to make sure you guys know exactly the term hair that I'm using there. Heir is how it's pronounced, actually, the heir to the throne. The tribal heir, it was on him to fix things. Styles ran into his OC compatriots. Gallows informed AJ Styles that they would still have his back, despite a lack of communication between the group in recent months. So you guys already know this pretty much sets up a pretty good way to close the show, because I was looking at what I already knew was going to happen on this episode of SmackDown, which, for sure the main point that I was coming into this knowing, I'm getting my popcorn ready for that segment, was the Logan Paul on the Kevin Owens show. So I already knew that was going to be a pretty big focal point of the show. But this right here kind of solidified, because we were also told that we were getting Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa tonight. So after this whole brawl took place, and, we saw AJ Styles go backstage and talk to Nick Aldis, eventually get that match booked between LA Knight and AJ Styles. Sorry, a lot of names going through my head right now. That told me that we were going to get not one, but two main event quality matches on this episode of SmackDown. And that's why I feel like this was, another home run show, because what they were able to deliver and the characters that were all to our, or I guess at our disposal. I mean, Roman Reigns, he did used to live in Atlanta. He went to Georgia Tech University, played football at Georgia Tech. So the city itself, I mean, for all we know, he may have a home there. I mean, it's a very popular destination. It's a tourist destination. A lot of people are transplants. They come there from New York and California and all other states, even Texas. A lot of people go to Georgia, and specifically Atlanta and that whole metroplex, just to further their career. It's mini Hollywood at this point. They shoot movies there. The Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport is literally the busiest airport in the world. That's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbolic. That's legitimate. It's for sure the busiest in the United States, but I can almost guarantee that the stat that I saw, at least as recent as like 2023, maybe 2022, Hartsfield-Jackson was, the busiest airport for sure that I've ever been to, but even in the entire world, and that's crazy to think about, but, I believe it. You have to ride a train just to go from your gate to the rental car station, the baggage claim. Like, you have to legitimately ride like a sky train, and then you're riding the plane train, and they both go pretty damn fast. Just kind of getting that out there. But look it up, Google it. I could be wrong, but I do, I feel like if you were to Google it, not being familiar with that airport, you'll come away thinking, holy hell, I'm so glad that I've never been inside of that hellhole. But anyways, continuing on here, let's get back to the SmackDown review. Speaking of the LA Knight versus AJ Styles match, LA Knight did get the win over AJ Styles, but it wasn't 1-2-3. It was because of disqualification. So the win actually felt like a loss because he got a Samoan spike. Solo Sikoa showed up. Jimmy Uso, came down the ramp as well. The Bloodline, specifically, not Roman Reigns, the other two members of the Bloodline, they just like to stick their noses in the other challengers' business. They like to stick their noses just where it doesn't belong. And they really like to sticky up the situation, muddy up the water, so to speak. And that's exactly what happened here, because, the brawl breaks out. Solo beats the hell out of both of them. Samoan spike wipes out AJ Styles on the outside of the ring too, picks up a microphone, says that's 2 down, 1 more to go. And like you guys already know, we already knew that we were getting a Solo Sikoa versus Randy Orton match for the main event. So he says, Randy Orton, get your ass out here right now. And that's whenever we get the one-on-one match between Randy Orton and Solo Sikoa. And this one was a pretty good match, despite not lasting very long. It was a good match, but, Solo Sikoa, he's not going to win these matches anymore. Ever since Cody Rhodes beat him, the floodgates seem to be opening. And now these specific matches, whenever Solo Sikoa was main eventing against the next challenger for Roman Reigns, he's never able to get the job done. And, it just so happens that That's what happens this night as well. He gets an RKO from Randy Orton, but he's not the only one that gets an RKO. We do see AJ Styles, we see LA Knight. They both eat an RKO, and then Roman Reigns comes out of nowhere, gets a Superman punch on Randy Orton. He signs the contract for the Fatal 4-Way that he didn't sign earlier in the show, remember that. And instead of handing it to Nick Aldis, he just drops it on the floor. The ultimate disrespectful move that you could possibly do. And he's going for the spear on Randy Orton, but he runs right into an RKO. So Randy Orton hit so many RKOs tonight, or last night, I guess. Just whenever I watch a show was today. So he hit so many RKOs on this episode of SmackDown. I know that Atlanta was absolutely loving that. They were chanting Randy Orton's name multiple times during the show. And the fact that he was able to be the one standing tall over everybody else seems fitting. It seems like the right thing to do. In fact, in a Fatal 4-Way match, technically all of the challengers are on an even playing field. But it does seem like Randy Orton is just a little bit higher. Maybe it's because he hasn't lost to Roman Reigns yet in a one-on-one situation. So that does kind of give him a little bit more credibility in this specific match. I think that he's going to be the one that has, I guess, the biggest push in the match. He's the one that's going on an actual run. He's going to swing momentum. There's going to be spots in the match where you think, damn, is Randy Orton actually going to pull this off? And I do think that matters at this point. But unfortunately, we all know what's going to happen in that Fatal 4-Way match. We don't know how it's going to happen, but we know that Roman Reigns is going to leave that match as the Universal Champion. And it's not the wrong thing to do. Like we've said, this isn't me. Don't let the tone fool you. I know that it's not an exciting finish because we already know what's going to happen. Yeah, we don't know how it's going to happen, but still, it doesn't take away from the fact that it kind of waters it down a little bit, makes it less enjoyable. But just because I'm not going to enjoy a predictable finish doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do at this point in the calendar. We're at the Royal Rumble. You fumbling the bag by having Roman Reigns lose makes about as much sense as Nick Aldis trying to pitch ending this history-making title reign by stripping the title. By stripping Roman Reigns for not signing a contract. We're like, yeah, we're going to end this historic, what is it, like 2 or 1,200 days, something like that, man. It's been a long time. I don't even know for sure. I probably sold him short a little bit, but well over 1,000, obviously. I had it right in front of me because he did pass Bruno Sammartino's second longest title reign. He's officially in the top 4 now, or top 5. I don't know exactly which one it is, but Bruno Sammartino, obviously, 2,803 days at the very top. And he had another title reign that was pretty damn long, too, and Roman Reigns just passed that one. So he's working his way up. Still got a little bit of ways to go before he passes Hulk Hogan. And who's the other one? Man, there's one more guy that's ahead of Roman Reigns. I apologize. I saw it on Twitter. It's not like I screenshotted it and planned on bringing it up on the show. It just casually came up, and I don't remember. So don't come for me for the, those perfectionists, the ones who want to make sure that the SmackDown review gets all their facts right. And there is absolutely no questions left asked by the time the show is over. No stone left unturned, so to speak. But let's move on to some of the other things that happened here on this episode of SmackDown. We'll start off with Legado del Fantasma, Santos Escobar, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo versus LWO, Carlito, Joaquin Wilde, and Cruz del Toro. LDF got the win via pinfall. So, and it was obviously, it was a roll-up. It wasn't like a nice finish to this match. It was a nice, cheap finish if you're a heel. But one thing I will say, just some quick things that came to my mind as I was watching this. LDF is back. And I do feel like they're better than ever just because the additions of Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza, I feel like it makes the faction a lot stronger than Joaquin and Cruz del Toro, just being completely honest. And that's not it's not supposed to be a shot at Cruz and Joaquin. They're just doing what they got to do. But just from an objective viewer's perspective, some of the definition of a non-needle mover, I do not know how you can get behind these guys. They absolutely have nothing to them as far as character-wise, and that's WWE's fault too. It's not like they could just take a microphone and go into business for themselves and explain what their mission is and who they are, who they're supposed to represent, all that good stuff. But it seems like they're just so vanilla. It's almost a it's almost a discredit to the actual flavor vanilla because they're even worse than vanilla. I've never been able to really get behind them, and I just think that where LDF was whenever they were in the group kind of hit their ceiling, but now whenever you throw this group in front of me, I feel like there is still some juice left to be squeezed, and I feel like there is still some development that could happen with these guys character-wise, and I feel like we're going to get a little bit further into telling their story and watching them, wreak havoc over other groups specifically and starting out with the LWO, and then we'll see them just continue on to do that. Eventually they'll feud with other people, but what I'm trying to say is it's a night and day difference, and I think that this is what Santos needed, and you mark my words, this faction right here, that we already did our stock investment draft. But it wouldn't shock me if by the time we get to 2025, LDF has one of the biggest years behind them, being 2024. And even if they don't capture the tag team gold, they cement themselves as a household name whenever you're talking about factions, current factions in the WWE. And speaking of factions, we got a little bit of like a dueling promo battle here. It wasn't at the same time, but Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, they cut a promo on the Final Testament, just pretty much letting them know, like, hey, don't get it twisted. We're not the, the laughing, happy Street Profits that we once were. We're the Triple Crown tag team that's won, the NXT tag team gold, the Raw and the SmackDown. Like, not a lot of tag teams have done that. And just remember that before you go picking a fight with us, because we can take care of business. I think they're, as a tag team, speaking directly at the Authors of Pain. And then the Final Testament, they had their own little vignette teasing a match with Lashley and the Street Profits next week on SmackDown. So we're going to get that. Likely going to be a 6-man tag. And yeah, sign me up for that, because now we're going to see more of this group. And I'm putting my, if we were in Vegas at the casino, I'm putting my chips behind the Final Testament. I just think that they got a little bit more juice right now than what Lashley and his team have. So give me the Final Testament and that whole group, that whole little faction that they have, because I've already talked about it. They cover a lot of ground. They don't have a mid-card male wrestler there. That's one thing I noticed. Like there's no wrestler there that can go for like the United States Championship, unless that's where you see Karrion Kross, in which case they don't have a top guy. But I think Karrion Kross is only one of those. He only fills one of those holes. You can't have him as your top guy and your mid-card guy. So, yeah, they have in my eyes, they have the top guy, they have the tag team, they have the eye candy and the mouthpiece, or just that coach, that person in their corner who's doing more behind the scenes rather than actually at ringside and, cutting promos and things like that. Just his presence alone adds to the group. I think that if we're just sitting here, someone who would fit perfectly in there. I mean, did he get kicked out of the Judgment Day? Why not J.D. McDonough? That seems like someone who could maybe join that group looking for a place to permanently call home. He just got kicked out of one faction. Now he's looking for a new group of people, come over to SmackDown. That could be an avenue, but if you're not going that direction, off the top of my head, it's kind of tough. Maybe because look at what happened. Obviously, Butch is no more. Pete Dunne is now the mainstay for that character. Like, he's by himself. He's the bruiserweight again. So we don't need to worry about him being in the Brawling Brutes. But that leaves Ridge Holland, who's technically like a free agent now then, right? You add him. He's already on SmackDown technically. You could add Ridge Holland to the Final Testament, and then you get more beef as well as getting that mid-card champion or that mid-card contender there, and it just makes your faction stronger in general. So that's just a little bit of a suggestion there. But speaking of Pete Dunne, him and Tyler Bate, they get a win over Pretty Deadly after Dunne hit Prince with a bitter end. And this was just a welcome back party for Butch. You saw it in his eyes. The crowd popped. The graphics were there on the Jumbotron. You heard Corey Graves talking about it. This is just a win for everybody. And like I was talking about last week, it's how I was introduced to Pete Dunne. And I think that he's just more comfortable here. He's still doing a good job as Butch, but that's just a credit to him. You can be a great pass rusher and go play a little bit of off-ball linebacker and still thrive. It doesn't mean you're not still a way better pass rusher. Just go look at Micah Parsons. That's kind of like Pete Dunne. Just because he can do Butch doesn't mean you put him there long term. You put him where he's going to thrive and where he's going to be the best version of himself, and that is as Pete Dunne, just being himself. This takes us to Logan Paul being a guest on the Kevin Owens show, and this was probably my favorite part of the entire show. You could tell that Kevin Owens immediately was kind of reluctant to bring out Logan Paul. He's like, man, I can't believe I've been saying this. Please welcome Logan Paul to the Kevin Owens show. And he comes out and, Logan Paul pretty much immediately says, like, hey, you don't like that I'm here in WWE. The crowd doesn't like that I'm here in WWE, but there's only one person to blame, and it's not me. Pretty much telling Kevin Owens to look in the mirror. And then they show the video package from WrestleMania back in 2021, just like 3 short years ago. And Kevin Owens hit him in Tampa, Florida with a stunner at WrestleMania. And that was his first ever WrestleMania appearance. A year later, he's teaming up with The Miz, taking on the Mysterios. I was there for that one. Last year, Logan Paul at WrestleMania, what did he do? He had a match, right? Gosh, I don't know why it's slipping me, and I know people are probably yelling right now thinking I'm an idiot for not remembering off the top of my head, and I apologize. But I cannot remember what Logan Paul did at WrestleMania last year. Was he injured? Oh, gosh, that's going to bother the hell out of me. But either way, he's going to have a match at WrestleMania this year, probably as the United States champion. I could see him losing it there at WrestleMania. It just makes a lot of sense, right? Like, have him win this card, or win at this card, I should say, at the Royal Rumble, defend that championship, and then go on to WrestleMania. It's his first WrestleMania holding a championship, and we don't need him to win. Him going into Mania as the champion is going to be enough to put him over, and I would definitely look forward to seeing Logan Paul on the WrestleMania build-up being a United States champion. But it doesn't just stop there. He also, reminds Kevin Owens about the cast, telling him, like, hey, that cast is a weapon. You're going to have to take that bad boy off before our match at the Royal Rumble. Otherwise, you could be in for some legal trouble. Of course, Kevin Owens doesn't just go quietly into the night. However, he tells Logan Paul, like, look, I've been doing this for 25 years. So, yeah, a lot of people really don't like you because you get thrust to the top because of the viewers, the eyeballs you bring in, when in reality, you're not as good as me. You're not as good as Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins. He name drops a few people as well. Rey Mysterio, just pretty much telling him, like, look, dude, like, and just because that you have that championship doesn't mean that it's not a joke in a lot of people's eyes. And that's pretty much coming from the heart from Kevin Owens. And, of course, Logan Paul does his typical. He turns it on him. Every single person you just referenced, you said their name, I have knocked them out. And I'm going to knock you out as well, which Kevin Owens obviously does not agree with. He tells Logan Paul that there isn't a single punch you could throw that would knock me down for more than 3 seconds, and it damn sure would not knock me out. And then he's continued to go on, and eventually takes off his cast to throw it out of the ring. And he turns his back on Logan Paul, which is absolutely the worst thing you could possibly do, because right when he turns back around, he is met with a right hook right in the jaw, knocks Kevin Owens on his ass, but he gets right back up. That's the thing about it. Kevin Owens is not going to stay down, and maybe he does have a point that he isn't going to, get knocked out with that one punch, but they continue to go at it. They end up going outside of the ring, in which case Kevin Owens, he leaves that right arm, he leaves it vulnerable, and Logan Paul does the right thing for him, which is beat the hell out of him, throw that right arm into the ring post. He's absolutely doing more damage to it, and it's going to make it way harder for Kevin Owens to not have a cast come Royal Rumble, but Kevin Owens gave him his word. He is not going to wear the cast. So Kevin Owens is going to have to go into the Royal Rumble, and defeat Logan Paul with a broken hand and no type of protection on that hand. So he's already at a disadvantage. More reason to believe that Logan Paul will successfully defend that championship come next Saturday. Let's see, Carmelo Hayes, he challenged Austin Theory to a rematch. Remember what happened last week? Their match did not finish because of the injuries that happened. Thankfully everyone's okay. Everyone's all good. So next week in Miami, we were supposed to get Austin Theory versus Carmelo Hayes, but as the challenge was made, Grayson Waller is the one that accepted, which tells me that maybe Austin Theory isn't cleared yet. He got rocked, and maybe he's still a little bit injured, so they wanted to bring him back, and this is his hometown, Atlanta, Georgia. He wanted to have a match, but he wasn't able to, and they wanted to still have him on TV. He's probably not going to be cleared next week either, so they just went ahead and made it seem like he's okay, but Grayson Waller is really going to take the heat in that match, and he's going to be the one that, goes toe-to-toe with Carmelo Hayes. Speaking of Grayson Waller, did you guys see the media appearance or the TV appearance that him and LA Knight made. And they were, quote unquote, being disrespected by some of the TV crew there. Just, Austin Theory probably would have been a better partner to be there next to him rather than LA Knight, because LA Knight kind of just, he was playing it calm, which a lot of people are saying, hey, shout out to LA Knight for playing it calm. Whenever, Grayson Waller was going crazy. Austin Theory, if he were there in that seat next to Grayson Waller, probably would have been two guys standing up, and who knows how the situation would have went. But, yeah, Grayson Waller just stands up. He defends himself. The business pretty much says, hey, don't be disrespecting us like that. Look, I don't punch you in the jaw right now. Is pretty much what he was getting at. But, yeah, phenomenal job by Grayson Waller standing up for the industry and, reminding everyone that, hey, it's not sweet over here, bucko, all right? So don't think that you could talk sweet about wrestling in front of a pro wrestler on national television and not, get threatened. So let's continue on here. The only thing else that happened was we had a WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter defeated the Unholy Union, which is Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, via pinfall by hitting After Party on Alba Fire. Post-match, Asuka and Kairi Sane confronted the champions. They had their belts. That's one thing I thought was weird, because they were all at ringside. Bayley was a guest on commentary. And they had their championships, but they didn't want to give them to them. They, had them, and they're like, hey, why the hell you guys have your hands all over our championships? Give them to us. They snatch them out of their hands, and we get a face-to-face, like, oh, you want a piece of us? Which is, it wasn't the most well-executed plan. That's typically what happens here. It seemed a lot better in the head than it was actually executed in the ring. Just kind of go back and watch it. I could be nitpicking, but I just wasn't a fan of the whole end of this. Maybe it's just I'm not used to seeing Katana and Kaden Carter as, actual legit champions. Maybe that time will come, but I am rooting for them. I will say, there needs to be some new blood in, the women's tag team championship picture that really doesn't exist, but hopefully the more teams come, the more stick around, and eventually that, that division in of itself will get a little bit of a credibility. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and move on. That's the episode of SmackDown. That's the SmackDown review portion. So we can move on to another segment here in the show, which is Stack 'em Up Saturday. And remember, I wanted to go through in the honor of the Royal Rumble and just make this one Royal Rumble themed. I could have gone best Royal Rumble winners of all time, best Royal Rumble performances of all time, best Royal Rumble returns of all time. So there's a lot of different directions I could have gone, but I wanted to keep it modern. And I wanted to do something that's not quite as obvious, because there's some obvious names that could win the Royal Rumble this year, but there are a couple that you scratch your head and you think, really? Like this year of all years? So let's go through my quick list. It's only 5 names, and I will let you guys know who I think is, a dark horse worth keeping your eye on once we get to Tampa next Saturday. At number 5, I got Bayley. And this one it's a name that's been mentioned to win the Royal Rumble here by fans and by herself. And, it makes a lot of sense, to get all the gold and damage control, right? Like, it just makes sense for Bayley to win, but she doesn't quite fit the mold of recent Royal Rumble winners. They've kind of gone, especially for the women, they've gone younger. They've gone more women's championship picture ready. People would probably raise an eyebrow if Bayley just tomorrow was thrust into, obviously because she's tag team partners with Io Sky, but Rhea Ripley, right? Let's just get the other women's champion. If Bayley was the one who came out and she was being pushed as the actual contender, the official contender for the championship, people would probably be like, Bayley, huh? I just feel like there were other women who might be worthy. And that's kind of where I see the pecking order as far as Royal Rumble winners. I think it could be more of a ready, polished commodity, someone who could immediately be thrust into the spot. But if you were asking me, I think that Bayley would be a phenomenal winner, and I do think she is a dark horse because of the built-in storyline with Io Sky, and she could, like I've been mentioning, she could pull a Dave Bautista and challenge the champion in her own faction after she wins this Royal Rumble. At number 4, I got Gunther, and some people might think of that and say, well, that's kind of obvious. Some people might look at it and say he's the Intercontinental Champion. There's no way. There's 2 world champions that we need to find a challenger for. why are you going to give the Royal Rumble spot to the Intercontinental Champion? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And the only reason why I say that is because, like I said, bigger things could be in store for Gunther. The Intercontinental Championship is important, but imagine if he won the Royal Rumble while still holding that championship. Would it not put him like, damn, like, we may have two historic wrestlers on the roster right now in terms of like doing something that's never been done, because obviously no one's ever had the Intercontinental Championship as long as Gunther's had it. But doing something like winning the Royal Rumble while on this historic title reign, it would cement him on a level where he would be by himself. Like, it would be lonely at the top for Gunther, because that's just another avenue to history. You know, there's several. Roman Reigns is on one. It's not the only path that you can get to wrestling immortality. And I think Gunther doing something like this could be well on his way. At number 3, going back to the women, Raquel Rodriguez. And I was really high on her last year at the Royal Rumble whenever me and John were there in person. She was the person that once she got eliminated, I let out an audible, I can't say it on the show because obviously it's a PG show and I'm not allowed to cuss, so I'm not gonna. But I didn't, let's just say I might have said a cuss word or two because I was pulling for her throughout that match. And hopefully it carries over into this year and we get some new wrestlers getting that opportunity that comes with winning the Royal Rumble. Because, like, the Royal Rumble is a jetpack. Like, the Royal Rumble is a springboard of all springboards. This thing thrusts you into the main event of WrestleMania, where right then, like, you're pretty much forced. Like, hey, I don't care if you've been riding the bench all year. It's 4th and 10. The person in front of you went down. We need you to come in and catch this football. And I think that's kind of where Raquel could find herself if, they choose her to win the Royal Rumble, where she can go one-on-one with Rhea Ripley or Io Sky, whoever, at WrestleMania. We can get a phenomenal show, and we can get a new champion, someone who I feel like is going to have many title reigns in their future. And, Raquel is more than worthy of getting that honor. Number 2, I have Finn Balor. Because he hasn't won it yet, he's definitely capable of winning it. He's good enough. And I think we're talking about factions kind of colliding. You can have Finn Balor win the Royal Rumble, go challenge Seth Rollins, win it. And then we get the whole Money in the Bank conversation with Senior Money in the Bank, Damian Priest. Is he going to cash in on Finn Balor? Is he going to go to SmackDown to try to cash it in over there? It's just, storylines are kind of writing themselves, and that's the beauty of having this deep of a roster and the creative team having this type of, I guess, they're in their bag. So all these characters have compelling storylines as we speak right now. So, of course, if you throw a Royal Rumble victory, there's a lot of avenues you can go down to set up for phenomenal WrestleMania matches and beyond. Which gets me to number 1. Now, a lot of people are thinking that The Rock and Roman Reigns are going to fight one night at WrestleMania, and Cody Rhodes and The Rock are going to fight another one. Maybe it's a triple threat. They keep the trend going, right? We had a triple threat to main event WrestleMania 20, a triple threat to main event WrestleMania 30. Why not get a triple threat to main event WrestleMania 40? Let's have our cake and eat it too, right? Let's satisfy the Rock people. Let's satisfy the Cody Rhodes people. And let's get one big triple threat match. That's what a lot of people are saying. However, I think that the one way for us to solidify Rock versus Roman Reigns and not just make it seem like he was, he cut to the front of the line over Cody Rhodes. He stole Cody's moment. One way to make it seem somewhat justified, have The Rock enter the Royal Rumble and eliminate Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes already made his declaration that he's entering the Royal Rumble. That is the path he's taking. He is trying to recreate history, win it again, get another opportunity at Roman Reigns, and beat him this time. He's trying to do what, the Avengers did, right? They went back in time. They're trying to go kill Thanos. He's pretty much trying to, do it all over again. Will he be able to do it? I don't know, but if we're going to feel good about Roman Reigns, and I know it doesn't have to be for the championship, everyone's always said that. Rock and Roman doesn't need to be for the championship, and I agree, it absolutely doesn't. But if Roman Reigns is the champion, why the hell not, man? Like, seriously, if that's one way for us to get it, if that's one way for us to get Rock versus Roman is, him being the surprise entrant at number 30, and he eliminates Cody Rhodes and whoever else is in it by pretty much saying, like, look, we went head-to-head, we went face-to-face. Let The Rock and Cody Rhodes be the final two in the men's Royal Rumble, and I promise you, every single wrestling fan will be on the edge of their seat. They will be watching that like, holy hell, we're really here. This is who's going to go on to fight Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and let it be The Rock. Let him beat Cody Rhodes. I just think that it would make sense, and, it would be for the championship at WrestleMania, and, at that point, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But that's how you justify it being The Rock, and that's how, you can, I guess, get him that one-on-one match with Roman Reigns and to not feel like him cutting Cody Rhodes because he went through Cody Rhodes, and Cody had a chance to eliminate The Rock, and he wasn't able to do it. So that pretty much just eliminates that argument right there. So really quickly, let's go back through my top 5 dark horses to win the Royal Rumble match. Number 5, Bayley. Number 4, Gunther. Number 3, Raquel Rodriguez. Number 2, Finn Balor. And number 1, The Rock. I do want to hear you guys'. I want to know what you guys think about this, so definitely let me know whether you do that via Twitter, Michael 5 Ritter, or, the Patreon app. I haven't been able to get on the Patreon app for whatever reason. It's kind of strange. As a listener, I haven't been able to listen to the WWE podcast episodes on Patreon. It's definitely frustrating, but hey, it is what it is. Hopefully that'll be fixed sometime soon. But definitely just find a way to get that list to me. Get your top 5, or just 1 or 2. It doesn't have to be 5. You can just tell me who you think. It could even be just be one name. Doesn't have to be an actual list. But I would be more than happy to hear your suggestions as well. But thank you guys so much for listening to this show. Hopefully you will come back next week for the Go Home Show for the 2024 Royal Rumble match. So thank you guys so much for listening. Have a damn good weekend. Enjoy the football. Go check out the Football Function podcast. Definitely would mean a lot to me. It would help me out a lot as well. And just having your presence in our listening audience would make the show better in of itself. So thank you guys so much. One more time. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.